how long have you been DJing for, and why did you get into it in the first place?
Okay, 25 years. It's my anniversary year. You've done me a lovely graphic for the year as well.
Yeah.
So 25 years of DJ Lamsdale with a nice little star on it. It's been 25 years. I think, how did I get into DJing? I think it's probably going to overlap the radio bit, so it's probably through my love of radio. I thought, well, how can I do this? Because there didn't seem to be any sort of like, for a 13-year-old kid, you're not really going to be invited to a radio station to go and do a radio show. So the closest thing to that is DJing. It's kind of like going out there. I think when people knew I was passionate about music and I loved like playing music to a crowd, I started off doing friends' birthday parties, and then suddenly they realised, then kind of parents said, oh, can you do anniversaries? So it kind of started like that, and it was a real poor setup. It was terrible. I had like these horrible record decks that were wired together, no mixer in the middle, and it's just I was literally limping my way through these sorts of events when I was about 14, 15.
Right, okay.
But that gives you a bit of a taste for it, and I think really then what happened is there was a job advert, I think it was 92, in the job centre for a light jockey, and I didn't know what a light jockey was. I kind of thought it was some sort of like super thin DJ or something like that.
Right.
And I did have my tubby belly at the time. I thought, I can do this. I found it's actually playing a lighting rig. Now, you guys sadly won't have experienced this.
No.
Because there are no super clubs anymore. You know, I think you'd have to go to London or Manchester or maybe even Bristol to go to a super club where there's somebody that needs to be sat there playing the lighting system alongside the music. And that was my job. My job was to stand by the side of the DJ. First ever sort of like touchpad computers, and basically just press buttons in the rhythm to the music.
That sounds good.
A great job, absolutely brilliant, and that's where it all began. So even though I've been doing DJing for friends and friends parties, the first proper job, the first proper gig was in Brooklyn Heights nightclub, which is sadly no longer with us. It's on Stowe Hill. The building's there.
Right.
It's Escapade currently. It's been shut down for quite some time, and that's where it all began. It, you know, back in 1992, I got given that gig, and again suddenly you're in that environment. You're in the industry, and suddenly people get to find out who you are and what you do and what you want to do, and it sort of led to me kind of like. DJing it like radio, it's all about fate and being in the right place at the right time. So there's got to be a little bit of talent and a little bit of love for it, but it's right place, right time. And I was just fortunate enough where they opened a brand new bar in the old John Frost Square called Blake's, and they didn't have a DJ. And it's kind of like, well, all DJs are busy kind of DJing. What about this? What about this Lamsdale character we've been hearing about?
Right.
And that was it. So from going to Brooklyn Heights, I then started doing the odd night in Blake's. The guy that was running Blake's was running a club which was currently Revolution, again sadly closed,
right.
but that was known as the Bank in
right.
town. There's one in India as well, not to be confused because I worked there as well. And the Bank in town, they had 3 floors, and I was given the 3rd floor, which is just scraping the bottom of the barrel. The
right,
3rd
okay.
floor of a busy nightclub is not where you want to be, but that's where you start.
Do not many people go up there then?
No.
Right, okay.
So it's good in a way because you get to learn your trade a little bit, and you get to kind of like work out what it's like on tough nights. And then it just progressed. Then I got into mobile DJing as well when I got back from university.
Right.
And again, that's you know, if you want to learn DJing, the style of DJ that I do anyway, do that. Go and do. Go to the mobile circuit, because you're going into a room full of people that you don't know. They're not there to see you, and you've got to make them have a good time, and you don't know what their musical choices are going to be. And I just sat down with a DJ who was working for the company and literally wrote down every single song that they were playing, and just thought, right, okay, well it's what we call sets. So there's an 80s set, there's a 70s set, there's a disco set, there's a rock set, you know. And I started writing down all these songs into logical order. It's pretty much what I do now. So Atlantica is great in 2017 because I am playing, you know, you walk into Atlantica, one minute I'm doing Bon Jovi, the next minute I'm doing Beyonce, the next minute I'm doing the Beatles, or Bees at the moment. But there's, you know, that's where I got into it.
But isn't DJing just standing there and pressing buttons, or is there more to that?
No, it's not even that these days. You press one button once and that's it. You know, it's all auto these. It comes down to 2 things. So you get 2 types of DJs. You get DJs that play a style of music. So you get a house DJ. You go and watch that DJ play that sort of music because you're into that sort of music. And hopefully the DJ's quite technically talented. They'll need to know the new tunes that are coming out.
Right.
technically gifted, they'll be able to mix and scratch and do stuff like that. So that's kind of like your one style of DJing. Or there's the complete opposite end, which is where I'm at. I work in a bar, and you walk in, I try and work out what you want. So I react to the crowd. So you get a crowd playing DJ, which is what I kind of class myself as. Now for that, you don't have to have mixing skills as such, even though I've done little bits of mixing in my time. But the skill that I've got is being able to identify the right music for the right people in the bar at the right time, and be able to do that and do it quite creatively.
Right. Okay.
And that's where my skill comes in. I think my skill is probably knowledge of music, knowledge of experience. Obviously, through doing the mobiles, that is just such a thing, and it's just. You learn, and it becomes almost like a gift in a way in the end, because you've learnt it, and then suddenly you're just naturally playing the right music to the right people. And sometimes it doesn't happen, even though I'm 25 years in. Sometimes you can get a night, Friday night in Atlantica, they were having a great time. Obviously Saturday, they all blur into one Saturday.
The weekend.
Saturday was an amazing night, but I was getting them to a level where they're just really having a good time. I'm just wanting to go just that bit further. Go on, really let go, really have some fun. And they just didn't do it. And I think it's just what I call Newport syndrome.
Okay.
You know, they just did not let go. And sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating, because you know you've almost got them right to the pinnacle of where you want them to be.
So song choices make it or break it seems.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
You're only one song away from clearing a dance floor, and that's been seen in my line of DJing as a bad thing. I've learnt now sometimes it's not.
Right.
Something, because you can always recover it by swapping into it. I think in any genre there's what I call the bangers. There's a song that will ultimately get you on the dance floor from that genre. Bryan Adams, Summer of '69, Kings of Leon within the rock genre, absolute bangers. You know, if you want to get anything. In the reggae genre, anything reggae is good in Newport, but Surrounding No Games is one of the songs. The one that's haunted me for 25 years is Chaperone Crystal, Twice My Age.
Right.
Now when I started DJing the bank, the DJ there, Simon, who gave me my big break in Blake's and the Bank in town, that was almost like his theme tune.
Right.
He played it a lot. And now I understand why it's still so relevant today in 2017 as it was back in 1992.
Right. Okay.
So within every genre there's a big banger, and you just start off with that. You just start off with a big banger, and if that doesn't work, then you have to flip genre really, really quickly. And then you got your top 40. So Despacito at the moment is probably the biggest song in my DJ box, and you've got the two DJ Khaled songs behind it. Then you've got I'm the One with Justin Bieber, and you've got Rihanna Wild Things as well. And again, if those two aren't going to get people moving and singing and dancing, then really
you've not got the crowd.
You just may as well pack up. It's
Right,
just at that point, it's game over at that point.
Okay. What would you say to someone who's thinking about getting into DJing then? These days, because obviously it's different to when you started.
I get this all the time. I do get people coming to me, and sadly they're usually a little bit drunk.
Right.
And you never know whether they're genuine or not.
Yeah.
But they come up to me. I had it Sunday. This guy comes up and goes, "Oh, I'd love to be a DJ. How'd you do it?" And it's what I said to you guys, what I've done in the past, because we've had Kaylee, who's my co-presenter on Newport City Radio Breakfast Show, and Dale, and Dizzy, as he was back in the day.
Right. Yeah.
And I've said to them, right, first of all, join Newport City Radio, because I can teach you. I can't teach. That's my job. It's like I give the equivalent of you're working in Tesco's, I'm working in Tesco's, I'm on the till, and suddenly you two rock up and you just have a conversation with me, just pull up a chair and grab a seat. I'm in work. It can't happen.
Yeah.
So I try and do. If somebody wants me to teach them to DJ, God bless them, then come to Newport City Radio. So that's the first push.
Okay.
But then, if they want to get into actually club DJing or pub DJing, there is nothing better than doing what I did, and it shows how serious they are as well. Get them to literally write down iPad, phone, whatever. They don't have to write it these days, but list every single song that I'm playing, and then do it for week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And let's see, 1, how dedicated they are and committed they are, and 2, where they can actually spot patterns and think, right, okay. Because I think my list from the Chris King discos was probably about 50 songs. And then what I've done over the years, I've just added and shaped and changed stuff, and I probably in my head now probably got about 5,000 songs,
right?
Because it's just all spawned out of, and obviously every year there's another 500 songs out, that you could play in a nightclub or not play in a nightclub or a bar, and you've got to be on top of it. Sometimes I can be DJing in Atlanta because it's such a great place to DJ to, and I'm playing a song from 2009. and suddenly my brain flicks back to 2009. I think, right, well, I've just played Alice DJ Better Off Alone. Now I'm going to play ATB, Fats and Small, and suddenly my brain flicks back to that, and I do the same set that I did when I was actually in 2009.
Right.
So that's kind of, that's fun when that happens.
You mentioned earlier about style, but you also mentioned that you have to sort of go with the charts. Is it okay to go off the charts and play your own stuff? Maybe unpopular songs?
Yeah, the problem you got with that, and this is where I think sometimes customers might find me a little bit frustrated.
Okay.
Because I am master of my own destiny. At the end of the day, it is my job to make sure that A, I get people into the bar and keep them in the bar. Whether they dance or not, or sing along or not, doesn't matter. I'm all a DJ is, in terms of what I do, is a salesman. It's my job to keep the customer in the bar as much as I can, buying drinks.
Right.
Because it's money in the till, and the money in the till then pays my wages.
That's a good point, yeah.
That's as pure. After that, it's a lot of fun, but that's the purity of it. That's the bottom line of it. So, yeah, that's kind of what I was doing. I think I forgot the question. What was the question?
Are you allowed to go off the go off the popular stuff and do your own thing?
That's the deal that I make with any bar owner that I work with. You're paying me to be here. Yeah, with 25 years experience, but even with 5 years experience, you have to trust me. So by all means, I'm quite happy to sit down with the bar manager and discuss music policy with them. If that's something they want to do, I'm quite happy to do that. I'm quite happy to negotiate and talk a little bit. I'm happy with that. But ultimately, let me do my job.
Okay.
You're paying me this money to come in as an expert and play to whatever crowd you give me. So please let me do my job. And again, it's all been great over 25 years. Not been many times where I've really had problems with kind of owners and music policies and stuff like that. I had one owner once saying, "Oh, what, you start playing Gaily R&B?"
Right, okay.
Well, I said to him, "Great, I can do that, but what is Gaily R&B?"
Rihanna?
They couldn't tell me.
Okay.
Is it R&B for girls that girls would dance to?
Oh, I see.
Or is it Rihanna and Book?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
Okay.
and they still can't tell me to this day what Gaily R&B is.
No.
And that's frustrating when the owner doesn't know what they're asking for.
They need to know what they want if they're going to ask you to go with a direction.
Yeah, but I think what you do, again, this could sound really mystical, but every gig I've done, every club I've played, every bar I've played, it's almost got its own vibe. It's almost grows its own culture.
Right.
So I go in there and I just try and find the way that bar's going to go. Sometimes with Atlantica we were really strict on what we wanted to do. We wanted to play songs maybe like Heart Radio, so what we class as sing along, or what I class as sing along anthems, so stuff that you necessarily don't have to dance to, but you definitely want to be singing along to. So it could be Time of My Life, it could be Queen, We Will Rock You, stuff that's going to make people sing,
Yeah.
So it's that's kind of the vibe that we wanted for Atlantica, and it's pretty much still relevant to this day.
I've seen Delilah do really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything Tom Jones is good. So that's. But every bar or club I've been into, it kind of it almost becomes its own thing, and
Its own sort of community with its own genre.
Own community, but certainly it's got its own vibe.
Okay.
So I walk into a building, and suddenly it's almost like the building and the customers are almost guiding me to what I should be playing.
Right. Okay.
Sorry to sound a bit mystical and stuff like that. And
no, again, it's like you said, you're reading the people, and that's part of your job.
Yeah, it's almost like, I think sometimes buildings, Quids in, KMA as it was to become, that was just its own thing. It was just, I'm still playing stuff I've never played before. I'm playing Vibes Cartel, and I'm doing early Major Lazer stuff as well. And it just had its own thing. I'm playing stuff that I wouldn't usually class myself as playing.
No. And
that's what I love about DJing. What I've DJed to. Sometimes the bar and the customers have overtaken and pushed me out my comfort zone a little bit, and I love that.
My last question is, which DJ or DJs inspire you?
Oh, right. It's 2017, so I'm not allowed to give the answer that I'm supposed to. Or am I? I don't know. But I think it's...
Or to you, what DJs are inspiring in general?
I think for me, it's... I've got to give a lot of love to a local guy called Ray Heaven.
Okay.
Who, when I was the light jock at Brooklyn Heights, he was the DJ. And he's a big guy in every way. He's tall. He used to be quite big, and a voice like this, and just brilliant at DJing, just amazing. And if you're not going to be kind of like inspired by someone like Ray Heaven, then you really shouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Okay.
So in terms of kind of like, if you're talking direct, that's that. I think I did a lot of research on the history of DJing, and I quite like the pioneers. I like the people that actually, you know, you got to think of it like back in the 60s, maybe late 50s. You go to a bar or a club, and there's a band playing. Or an orchestra or something like that, and you dance to the orchestra. Who ever thought that you take in a piece of equipment with 2 speakers and you play music at people? Who thought of that? And I think the guy that thought of it sadly has got a bit of a bad reputation these days in DJing.
Right.
So my first kind of like hero, sadly, can't be my hero anymore because of things outside of DJing. I don't know. Does it affect it? You know, can you if your hero's done something really, really despicably bad, can they still be a hero? Probably not. So
That's a thought-provoking question.
it is very deep.
Well, we're going to have a music break now, but we'll come back for the second half of the interview. So make sure you stay tuned at NB City Radio on Twitter or facebook.com/Newport City Radio. Get your questions in.
Your city, your sound, Newport City Radio.
We're going to carry on with the interview now on the radio side of things. So obviously you set this place up. Why?
I just love radio. It's as simple as that. I can't think of the moment where I just listened to the radio and thought, but yeah, I just love it. I remember sort of my dad used to drive, used to work for a carpet factory manufacturer, so he'd take carpets from the factory where they're making them and take them to the shops for them to sell them. And he'd do a lot of work around leaving Newport where the big factory was. I think it was called Stewart and Lloyd's. Maybe.
I'm not sure.
So on New Venture Carpets, that's what it was. So he worked for New Venture Carpets, and we'd drive down to Frome. And I guess it must be summer holidays. I remember it's like there's a song by Niz Loppy called JCB Song, and it's a bit like that. I really love going travelling with my dad, and he'd have the radio on. And I remember my sister just loved music as well, so it was always that. And I just heard Radio 1 in the 1980s, and I just thought that is just amazing. And I didn't really make the connection to that's what I could be doing. And I think it was probably about 12, 13 where that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I was probably the annoying kid in school, but not for the reasons that you might think. I was the annoying kid in school because I knew what I wanted to do. It's like, what do you want to do when you grow up then? Radio.
Yeah,
I could sum it up in one word.
I think they like you to have options, don't they?
Yeah,
not just go for one thing.
And that completely annoyed my career as teacher, because what can you do with a boy that wants to do radio? What can you do? You know, I suppose you could link them into the BBC and stuff like that, but really, there's not. As a careers advisor, that's a bit specific. If I turned around and said acting or broadcasting or something like that, then maybe the careers advisor would have felt a bit comfortable. But when you just give them 5 letters, radio, I say, deal with that.
So did you want to be a presenter or a producer, etc.?
Yeah, I think it was always a presenter.
Okay.
But I love producing. I love playing about with ideas and putting together radio shows, and it's just I think it's when you do it, I think it's like a little art form. I think it's like there's nothing better than coming up with great creative ideas and then just put them on the radio and seeing where they work or whether they don't. Quite quickly. It's quite an honest medium, radio. So yeah, it's something that if I don't want to make choices, but again, if you ask me DJing or radio, it would be radio. If you ask me producing or presenting, producing.
Okay. You mentioned about Radio 1 and the 80s. Do you think presenters back then really did like everything you could possibly do with audio, with what they have? And do you think sort of presenters just sort of on radio now, do you think they just play music and not really do what they can with audio?
Yeah, it's difficult because I think whatever era you're in, you play with the technology, you push the technology as far as you can. So when I've done the Newport City Radio Breakfast Show, on your screen you've got 4 different players, sort of like 4 CD players, for a better way of phrasing it. And I like to try and use all 4 at all times. I've always got loads of things buzzing off on it.
Right.
So yeah, I think you always want to push to the limit. So whether it was back in back when I started doing radio properly in the 1990s, where you got 2 vinyl decks and a cassette deck, and I'm playing jingles, I got vinyl playing, I got another bit of vinyl coming in and stuff like that. I'm pushing it to the extremes, and I think that's what you want to do. So I don't think that changed. I think people really, really enjoy pushing the technical limits of what they can do. Or at least I did, anyway. Do
you think they do that then in the superstations now?
Yeah, I think the problem is that it's a business. Radio is a business. So community radio, which is what we're kind of doing online, slightly different, but commercial radio is exactly what it is. It's got shareholders, and you need to make as much money as you can to pay the shareholders back. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
So it is a bit like radio by numbers. So it's if you do this, if you do that, and I just sadly, I think it's horrible where a presenter, this style of show that you're doing right now, probably would not get to be on a music-based radio station, or probably wouldn't get onto most radio stations.
I was thinking about that. Yeah.
I think that's a real shame. I think DJs aren't allowed to, and I can understand it. I think the fundamental problem was, so say if you become a household name and become really famous for what you're doing, suddenly if you decide to leave Newport City Radio and you suddenly go and work for, I don't know, Capital, then our listeners are probably going to follow you.
Yeah.
And you can't afford to lose listeners, because that's where the money making chain stats come into it.
Right.
So I think what DJs, apart from breakfast shows and maybe drive time shows, I think most DJs in the UK at the moment have just been asked to say this is, and don't bring any of your personality into it. Don't talk about yourself. Don't talk about anything really. Just keep it really simple and really short.
That's sad.
It is, but it can go too far the other way. You can get some DJs that keep talking and talking, a bit like me, talking and talking and talking and talking, and at the end of the day, people switch off, and you don't want that to happen either. So I think commercial radio is a victim of being a commercial entity, and it is what it is. That doesn't mean I think it's bad. I think there's some great commercial radio out there, so I'm not having to go at commercial radio.
No.
I just think radio should be better than that. I think it should be inventive and creative, and you should be able to open the mic and say, obviously polite and clean, say what you want really, and experiment with it. And I think if Newport City Radio doesn't do that as a community style radio, we're missing a trick. I think this is. I want Newport City Radio to be about Newport. And I want it to be about people expressing themselves in ways that they want to. You've chosen this route, and that's fantastic. But I've got people that want to do soul shows and country shows, and that's great. This is where it should be at. But if it was a commercial radio station I was running, it wouldn't sound like this. And I just think it's missing the trick a little bit. And I'm hoping that if we were ever to broadcast, I'd hope listeners would go, God, it's a bit old school in its approach, but wow. And even to people like you guys, you might not have heard radio like this, and that's a real shame. Because I think people are growing up these days thinking radio is kind of like, that's Chris Brown, next up, great song from Rihanna. That's not radio. This is radio. What we're doing right now, talking to each other, is radio.
I remember when radio used to do like sort of film pranks and stuff, and that's sort of frowned upon now.
Yeah. It's. I think sometimes you're frightened of your own shadow, and the BBC should be at the forefront of innovating stuff, and sometimes even they're too scared to do it. There's all this thing about presenter salaries coming out today, and the BBC have done that to themselves,
Right.
If you want to find out what the BBC salaries are on, you just get a Freedom of Information request, I guess. But and they're probably obliged to tell you because they're public service. But they've just gone and shot themselves in the foot with it. They've just gone out there and just released all these people's salaries, and they've held themselves up to criticism. And I just think sometimes even the BBC, which is supposed to be risk-taking, sometimes can't be. So maybe it's down to each community radio station to be a little bit more risk-takey.
Definitely.
I think with the BBC, though, the BBC has obviously changed. I mean, they've been firing loads of their white male staff now, even presenters that have been on the shows for over 30 years. I think the BBC has become definitely more progressive, and like things like Monty Python can't be on TV, and when obviously the very recent ASS kind of scandal, obviously I suppose it's more to do with the political side of everything, but I think the BBC they're afraid. They're definitely afraid to do anything because, as much as they're a public sector, it's questionable to how much of a private sector as well, and what their private interests are, and who's actually giving them money on the side. Because I think one of the things that I do is I actively kind of go against. I say, well, actually, I wouldn't want to fund BBC because I don't think I should. I think that's actually taxation theft. Where I'd like my money to actually go is a radio station that actually does have variety, does have diversity, especially in something like this.
I think the problem that you've got is that people have looked at funding models for the BBC, including me when I did my degree, and there really isn't a better one. I'm not saying it's perfect and it's right, but there is no better model, and it depends on how progressive Rupert, whether you think Rupert Murdoch is the devil or a saint. I think there's that fear that he's going to own everything, and suddenly you're only going to get a one-pointed version of the facts. Facts is a weird title.
Yeah, I mean, that's even questionable to even if he already owns the BBC. I mean, the BBC takes loads of private investments. I mean, for example, Top Gear was one of their biggest investors, where they had people people coming in on to show. The guests were just sponsors essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said, Ian, it is down to local community radio stations to really push the limits while they have that space. And
it's a shame because I think the BBC was there to take risks, and it's just doing exactly the opposite, I think. But there you go. That's I understand why. I get it. I think it's a shame really, because I think maybe it's been lost to the politicians rather than owned by the programme makers. And I think that's the problem that you've got there.
I think there's a lot of politics involved with the BBC nowadays.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm not there. I've never worked for the BBC. I've been there on work experience, and I expect the extent that my BBC...
Did they give you free coffee?
No, they didn't.
Oh, well, that's how I judge a place.
I made lots of coffee, but I guess that's what you do on work experience.
If you're a runner, yeah.
Yeah, so, this is, time will tell whether what we do is still relevant and cool, and there's a need for it, or are we back into the wrong tune? We just need to suddenly say to Gareth one day, can you stop talking and just say that was this is? I hope we never get to that, but we'll find out. The audience, again, will be subject to the rules of radio, where the audience will be, we need to build an audience. If we don't build an audience, then we won't have advertisers, and they won't go to companies to spend money, and then those companies won't spend money with us to advertise with us. So it's a triangle. It's a vicious triangle.
Yeah, sort of a balance.
Great when it works well, but it's a vicious triangle. And I still hope that we keep our vision of trying to keep it like this.
See, I think independent radios actually have the niche, whereas corporations probably don't. I think corporations are actually going to fail probably quicker than niche radios, and this is because I think radio is developing. I mean, you see people, they like podcasts now. They like, they like stations that have a variety of music. I think radio is developing. It's definitely turning into something, but I think a lot of people don't know what that is, and I think the person who figures out specifically what it is and how to make live podcasts and kind of diversity of music kind of hip again, I think that's kind of where somebody's going to hit a niche and then they're going to really capitalize on it. But until then, I think radio has kind of a dying moment where a lot of people don't know how to capitalize on radio.
So. I think certainly for the younger audience, I think we've always been kind of confident that youngsters will still listen to radio, and I don't think they are anymore.
I think they could be. I think this is weird development, because podcasts are huge. So, they're very popular amongst under 25s at the moment. Podcasts are, and I think if you have a say, okay, this is our live stream. You would it how people would on the internet, for example, YouTube. I mean, if you made it more like YouTube, where people have Google Hangouts and things like that, and you started making radio more like that and presentable in that way, I think that would attract so many more listeners. I mean, Loud and Crowder is a perfect example. Alex Jones, Infowars, I mean, the more right-wing pundits, but they've really capitalised on radio being a set time every Wednesday for Loud and Crowder, for example, and actually getting that to work and capitalising on it.
Yeah, the traditional way of understanding radio is that, again, it's a bit like my DJing. You get two different types, and you get two different types of radio. You get kind of like radio stations that play a variety of stuff, including interviews, like Radio 2, where you can dip in and have a little bits, and even they're not as wide as they used to be. They've brought it in a little bit, and they started kind of like almost podcasting their shows almost. So what happens overnight on Radio 2, you don't get a live presenter anymore, which again I think is a shame, because it's the BBC. I think they should be doing that, but you get a repeat of sounds of the 80s or sounds of the 70s or something like that. I think you're right. I think it is. They're trying to even that for that age of listener, but really you don't get away with it. You're only, like DJing, you're only one song away from getting the listener to switch off, and that's the worst thing that can happen.
That's scary.
It is. It's terrible. Good job we're talking.
Thanks for that.
You are literally, and that's the fear. That's the problem is these days with touch button radios, you don't have to tune in the radio anymore with a dial. That's really had an impact on the industry as well, because consumer choice. So I don't like the record that's playing on this radio station. I'll press number 2 on my on my radio, and I'll listen to this for a bit.
But I think one of the things as well is that BBC4, I mean, they've cut down quite a lot. Before they used to have live, I used to love the big big bands, big jazz band, blue bands. They used to have all the time, and they don't do that anymore. They don't go anywhere near live. This all obviously orchestrated and recorded and all that. They used to have. We used to have quite a lot of different talk shows as well in the day. Because when I was in creative media, I used to listen to it quite a lot in the middle of the week, and it was quite interesting because that was kind of where I found. I remember there was this one show with a feminist writer. I actually really enjoyed her. I as much as I go against feminism, I actually do have a few favourite feminists, like Jermaine Greer, for example, which is weird, but. No, they don't have that kind of like I use feminism as an example because feminists used to be kind of like the ones that were out there, kind of like edgy and things like that. They don't even go for that so much anymore nowadays. It's just kind of like basic narrative they'll even remotely touch upon, and it's kind of. I feel the Beeb as a whole, like even with that kind of talent they did have with the BBC4,
same with the
kind of gone away.
So if we're keeping on that line, So what I asked you with the DJ question is what radio presenters inspire you, and who inspired you when you were starting out?
Yeah, it was Gary Davis. So he wasn't the coolest DJ in town by any stretch of the imagination. It's the mid-'80s, and it's again, you got to be so careful that you don't take what was acceptable in the 80s and slap 2017 rules on it. So he had his bit in the middle radio show because it was in the middle of the day. But obviously, there's a sexual connotation to that,
right?
And his whole listeners were known as young, free, and single. So it's almost kind of like it was a revision back to the 60s a little bit,
right?
And that style of radio. So yeah, he definitely he got to be quite a cool presenter because he got given a late night show where he was playing groundbreaking music, and that's where again I really enjoyed hearing a different side of a presenter, and that's what I love about presenters. I love presenters that can do music radio 1 minute and then flip into something different the next. And again, this is I'm loving. Here's a plug for you. I'm loving my Saturday shows at the moment. So the sports shows all wrapped up for the summer because the county don't play. So I've been given an extra hour, and I thought, what can I do with this extra hour? I could do a chart show. Done that before. I thought, no. The one thing that I haven't done, and Newport City Radio this year is all about loving live music and supporting local acts. So really, as head honcho, I really need to be sort of like stepping up and doing this myself. And we've had some great singers into my show over the last couple of weeks, and I'm really enjoying the challenge of doing that because again, I like my radio shows to be kind of silly and daft and just having a bit just whatever happens, throw it in there, see what lands. It is structured. There are ideas behind it, and there is a plan. But sometimes I just want some of the randomness. When you got Ian Johnson in the studio with you, DJ EJ, he could say anything at any point, and you got to react to it. And I love that, but I also like the doing stuff again out of my comfort zone where you've got I'm having to mic up a guitar and a singer, which I'm not a music tech by any stretch of the imagination, and I have to talk to them as well. I have to do what you're doing, and that's something that I haven't done. I've done bits of, but not like this, and that's what I love about it. So yeah, Gary Davis was a massive inspiration for me. Simon Mayo, Jo Willey, just a fantastic female presenter. She could present where it wasn't kind of like female presenters at the time. Again, sorry if it's a bit sexist, but where, hey, how are you? Okay, boys. It was this fake sexual overtone to it.
Oh, right.
Jo Willey came along and just went, all right. And it was just...
It kind of reminds me of, what is it, like Frasier?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And she just came along and just showed you that you don't have to be like that. Sort of commercial radio was full of it's almost like comedy characters, not DJs. And
that's good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Chris Moyles again. I thought. He was great on Radio 1, absolutely brilliant. I've heard him on Radio X this morning, so I was up early, and for me it's not the same. But yeah, it's just so many great presenters growing up, Simon Bates, it's just loads of them. But the one for me was Gary Davis, just because I just thought it was fun. And he had the Top 40 as well. I love Top 40, so really easy, because Top 40 used to be on the Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
So it was crazy, no computers. So what had to happen is the shops were closed on Saturday afternoon about 5:30. Suddenly all this paperwork had to be submitted. Got easier with point of sale stuff, but this is before point of sale, and someone had to literally add up all the sales for the week, and it took until Tuesday afternoon, a paper-based exercise to know what was best-selling single in the UK was. Now computers, like that. Sorry, I banged the mic. So yeah,
That's crazy.
So yeah, answer the question, Gary Davis.
Okay. So one of our volunteers here asks, as we approach the 10th anniversary of Newport City Radio, what's your plan for the next year, and what do you do in hope of celebrating it?
Can't tell you. Top secret. that makes it sound as if there isn't a plan. There is. There is a plan. I think look at the things that you're starting to see happen this year. So the music policy's changed. It's difficult because we want you guys to play what you like, and we've got specialist shows, but we also want to try and start building an audience for the radio, a bigger audience for the radio. And music, as you just found out, is critical.
Yeah.
You play the wrong song and you're going to lose a listener. You can't do much about that, but you can do stuff about it. So we've tightened up the music policy a little bit. The website's adapted a little bit and evolved and changed. So again, we're expecting to see more of that next year. We're going to diversify the business a little bit. So we're going to go into a bit of hosting stuff. So if you want a website and you want somewhere you can trust to host it, because there's so many scandals with being hacked and stuff like these days. If you want somewhere safe to go, then we've been proving that we've been safe for 9 years. Yes, we've been hacked. It happens, but we've survived the hacking, and I think we've learned from it as well. So that's going to be something that we're going to be offering very soon. The live music thing. So it's great. Newport City Radio being about Newport, fundamentally great. That's our unique selling point. Okay, back that up. So how do we do that? Well, we support live music. Newport's got a great history of live music. We should be at the forefront of that. And this is what we're doing with the songwriting competition, which closes at the end of the month. Anybody can write a song and submit it to Newport City Radio. Just send it at songs@newportcityradio.org. And what will happen then, we're going to team up with Neon. They're going to make a video or two out of the ones that we think are great. And then it leads on to almost like a cup final, which is on October the 1st, which is the Love Live Music Awards, where we've got at the moment 8 categories. I was not sleeping last night. We talked about sleeping earlier.
Yeah.
I actually had not the best night's sleep last night.
Right.
And I'm sat there thinking, there's another category, there's another thing, and just writing stuff down at like 1 o'clock this morning.
So the aim is to sort of get out there into Newport and collaborate with other organisations.
Yes.
and artists.
And basically it's doing what we've done well, not overstretching it, because again that's a fundamental problem that I bring to Newport City Radio. I want to do everything all the time. So I got to try and narrow it down a little bit, focus on what we're good at, make it better, and then go from there. So a lot of things that it's almost like a test year this year. So we're testing new things out and changing a couple of things this year. Sorry guys, 'cause it's going to be a bit of a bumpy ride this year and next year because change is bumpy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're piloting stuff and changing stuff, practicing it this year, so we get nailed ready for next year. So the Live Music Awards in October, I want it to be fantastic. I'm working hard with Kim and the Neon, and we've got a sponsor called Kyman or Kimin at Financial Services. We're trying to do everything to make this year amazing. But I'm not too worried if it's not. As long as next year is amazing, because that's our 10th birthday.
Awesome. Okay.
And I think to maybe give you a bit of an exclusive. I think it's about time that we do some radio again.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to let you work out what that kind of means, but I think it's about time we do some radio.
Well, we've just gone into the second hour, so one more question I've got for you is, if people want to get involved in Newport City Radio and in what we do here, how can they do that? How can they contact you?
Nice and easy. You go to Newport City, you can type into any search engine, Newport City Radio. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. Happened on Facebook earlier today, which was great. Ultimately, you'll get an email address, which is contact@newportcityradio.org. We'll sort your induction, we'll come in, we'll see whether you like us, we'll see whether we like you. It's like speed dating. We've got 40 minutes to get to know each other, and that we go from there then. It's what I want Newport City Radio to be, and this again could be a flaw, is I want it to be about you guys. So you come and tell me what you want to do, and I will try and get Newport City Radio to fit around you.
Awesome.
I have one more question. This is about Newport City Radio. When can I have a pay rise?
Right, well, the good news is I'm looking at your current salary, because I did see this question pop up, and I can give you instantly 100% pay rise on what you're on right now,
that's
which
perfect.
I think 100% of nothing
Wait, hang on,
is... Hang on, let me check my maths. Nothing.
Even if it was 200%, it'd still be nothing.
Exactly. So you're only
great,
getting
I could get
100%.
double
You're not
than
going to get
nothing.
200.
I've said it before, free coffee.
Yeah, exactly. What more do you want?
Ian, thanks for joining us.
No problem.